Single mom janitor dances alone in office at midnight. Millionaire CEO is watching everything. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Stop the video. Bryce Alexander Johnson's voice cut through the silence of his office, quiet but commanding. His finger hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly. On the screen before him, security footage played from camera 14. The conference room on the 23rd floor. The timestamp read 12:47 in the morning. He shouldn't be watching this, he knew that. But something had caught his eye as he scrolled through the overnight recordings, something that made him pause, rewind, and now he couldn't look away. A woman was dancing, not just moving through the empty conference room. Dancing. Her body told a story his mind couldn't quite translate, but his heart somehow understood perfectly. She wore the grey uniform of the janitorial staff, oversized and shapeless. But the way she moved, it was like watching poetry written in the air. Graceful, aching, beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten. She had headphones in. He could see the white cord trailing down from her ears. Whatever music she heard, it was hers alone. The room around her was dark, except for the amber glow of the city lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan at night, 47 stories up, becoming the backdrop for this private performance no one was meant to see. Bryce leaned closer to the screen. Her eyes were closed, arms extended, then drawing inward as if holding something precious, a spin, controlled and perfect. Then a movement that looked almost like grief, her body folding, hands reaching toward the floor before rising again, with fierce, quiet determination. "Who are you?" The thought whispered through his mind. He'd been sitting in this office for 3 hours, reviewing quarterly reports that blurred together into meaningless numbers. 38 years old. Chief Executive Officer of one of New York's most successful creative agencies. Penthouse apartment in Tribeca. Bank account with more zeros than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. And he felt nothing, just hollow. Going through the motions of a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt like a beautifully decorated coffin from within. Until this moment. Until this unknown woman dancing alone in the darkness showed him what authentic feeling looked like. She stopped suddenly, her head turned toward the camera, though he knew she couldn't see him, couldn't know anyone was watching. But something in her posture changed. Awareness. Fear. Maybe. She pulled the headphones from her ears with quick, jerky movements, grabbed the cleaning cart stationed by the door, and hurried from the room. The footage continued playing, showing only the empty conference room, the ghost of her presence lingering in the stillness. Bryce rewound it, watched again. Her face, briefly visible as she turned toward the camera, struck him with unexpected force. Young, late 20s perhaps. Exhaustion visible even in the grainy security feed. Dark hair pulled back severely, no makeup, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much weight for too long. But when she danced, the exhaustion fell away, replaced by something transcendent. He pulled up the employee access logs, cross-referencing the timestamp with badge entries. There, Lisa Williams, night janitorial staff, hired 3 years ago. Shift, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., 5 nights weekly. Lisa Williams. He said the name aloud, testing how it felt in his mouth. It sounded ordinary, simple. The kind of name that disappeared into crowds, belonged to someone the world had learned to overlook. But he had seen her, really seen her. And now he couldn't unsee it. Bryce closed the security footage, but the image remained burned into his mind. He stood, walking to the windows that framed his corner office. The same view she'd danced against, though from a different floor. The city sprawled below, a million lives he'd never know. A million stories he'd never hear. How many people moved through his building each day? Hundreds, thousands. How many of them carried hidden beauty, secret talents, dreams deferred? How many of them did he walk past without truly seeing? His mother's face flickered through his memory. Margaret Johnson, who had been a painter before she became a wife, a mother, a woman whose art supplies gathered dust in a closet while she arranged charity luncheons and smiled at his father's business associates. She died 5 years ago. Cancer, swift and merciless. In her personal effects, they'd found a note tucked inside an old sketchbook. I wonder who I would have been. 7 words that haunted him still. He turned from the window, looking back at his desk. The quarterly reports, the strategic planning documents, the life he'd built that felt increasingly like a life he'd borrowed from someone else. Someone who cared about market shares and competitive advantages and client retention rates. Someone who wasn't him, but who was he? He'd forgotten, somewhere between his mother's funeral and the 40th floor, between the penthouse and the board meetings, he'd lost the thread of his own story. Become a character in someone else's narrative, successful, admired, empty, until tonight. Until a woman whose name he shouldn't know, whose dance he shouldn't have witnessed, cracked something open in the careful shell he'd built around his heart. He needed to know more, needed to understand why watching her move had felt like waking from a long sleep. But even as the need rose in him, urgent and undeniable, a quieter voice whispered warning. This felt like standing at the edge of something, a threshold. One step forward and everything might change. One step forward and there would be no going back. Bryce saved the employee file information to a secure folder. Lisa Williams, 29 years old. Current residence, Queens. Emergency contact, Justin Williams. The system listed him as her son. A mother. She was a mother who cleaned offices at midnight and danced like her life depended on remembering who she'd been before the world taught her to be invisible. The clock on his computer read 1:37 in the morning. She would be working somewhere in the building right now, floors below him perhaps, emptying trash cans, vacuuming carpets, wiping down desks, invisible labor that kept the gleaming facade of Aura Creative running smoothly. Work people noticed only when it wasn't done. He could go find her, right now, walk down to wherever she was working and, "What? Say what? I saw you dancing. You're extraordinary. Why are you hiding?" No. That would terrify her, violate the privacy she'd thought she had. Make him the kind of man who used his position to corner women who couldn't say no, who couldn't walk away, who needed their jobs too desperately to tell powerful men to leave them alone. He wouldn't be that man. He'd been raised better. His mother had taught him better, but he couldn't unknow what he'd seen either. Couldn't pretend that woman didn't exist, didn't matter, didn't deserve to be seen. Bryce Johnson, who had stopped feeling much of anything years ago, felt something now. Something that might have been hope or curiosity or the dangerous beginning of caring about someone other than himself. It terrified him. It also felt like the first real thing he'd experienced in longer than he could remember. The alarm clock screamed at 6:30 DOs, dragging Lisa Williams from the thin edge of sleep she'd finally managed to find. She reached out blindly, slapping at the nightstand until her hand found the phone, silencing its electronic shriek. 3 hours. She'd gotten 3 hours of sleep. Again. Her body ached as she pushed herself upright, feet finding the cold floor of the apartment's single bedroom. Through the thin wall, she could hear Mrs. Patel's television already playing, the morning news anchor's cheerful voices discussing traffic and weather with insufferable optimism. The building was old, the walls paper-thin, every sound carrying like they all lived in the same room instead of separate apartments stacked like shipping containers in a Queens walk-up that had seen better decades. Justin. The thought of her son pulled her fully awake, the way it always did. He'd be getting up in 20 minutes. She needed to have breakfast ready, his backpack checked, his lunch packed. 7 years old and the center of her universe, the reason her heart kept beating, even when her body forgot why it should. Lisa stood, wincing as her lower back protested, 29 years old and she felt 60. That's what 3 jobs did to a body. What single motherhood on minimum wage did to a soul, but she couldn't think like that. Wouldn't. This was the life she'd chosen, and she'd choose it again. Every time. Every single time. The apartment was small, painfully so. 400 square feet pretending to be a 1-bedroom. The bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. Kitchen consisting of a hot plate, a mini fridge and 18 inches of counter space. Living room and bedroom existing in the same space, separated only by a bookshelf that held Justin's school books and the few toys they'd accumulated from thrift stores and church donation programs. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Clean. Safe. Paid for with her own hands, her own sweat, her own refusal to give up. She moved quietly to the corner that served as Justin's space. He slept on a twin mattress on the floor, blankets twisted around his small body, dark curls falling across his forehead. Her heart clenched, the way it always did when she looked at him. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Every sacrifice worth it for this, for him, for the chance to watch him grow up loved and safe and certain of his place in at least one person's world. Mama, his voice, thick with sleep. Morning, baby. Time to get up. School day. He groaned, burying his face in the pillow with the dramatic despair only a 7-year-old could muster. Do I have to? Yes, sir, you do. Up and at 'em. I'll make pancakes. That got his attention. His head popped up, eyes suddenly alert. Real pancakes, boxed mix pancakes, but yeah, real enough. Justin scrambled up, suddenly motivated. Lisa smiled despite her exhaustion. Small victories, little moments of normal in a life that felt anything but. She moved to the kitchen area, pulling out the battered box of pancake mix, the eggs she'd bought on sale, the milk that would expire tomorrow, stretched the budget to make it last. Always stretching, always calculating, always $3 away from disaster. But Justin would have pancakes this morning. That mattered. As she mixed the batter, Justin emerged from the bathroom, face washed, hair sticking up in 12 directions. He wore his school uniform, the navy blue pants and white polo shirt that the public school required. She'd bought them 2 sizes too large at the beginning of the year, hoping he wouldn't outgrow them before June. So far, so good. Mama, can I ask you something? He climbed onto the single chair they had, watching her cook. Always, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Were you really a dancer? Like a real one? Lisa's hands stilled on the spatula. Where did that come from? Tommy's mom said she saw an old video online, people dancing in the street. She said one of the dancers looked like you. Was it you? The breath caught in her chest. 7 years. 7 years since she'd left that world behind, and it still found ways to reach forward, tap her on the shoulder, remind her of who she'd been before she became invisible. That was a long time ago, baby, before you were born. But you were good, right? Tommy's mom said you were really good. I enjoyed it. Very much. Lisa flipped the pancakes, focusing on the task, not the memories threatening to surface. But that was a different life. This is better. Why? Because I have you now. And you're better than anything else in the whole world. Justin absorbed this with the serious consideration children give to things they don't quite understand, but sense are important. Can you teach me to dance like that? Maybe someday. Right now, you need to focus on school. Speaking of which, did you finish your math homework? His face fell. Oops. Justin Michael Williams. I'll do it at breakfast. I promise. You better. Hand it over. He scrambled down, retrieving his backpack from beside the bookshelf, pulling out the crumpled worksheet. Lisa plated his pancakes, set them in front of him with a fork, and watched as he ate with one hand while writing numbers with the other, multitasking at 7. Her son, so smart, so beautiful, so utterly unaware of how hard she worked to make his childhood feel lighter than hers had been. The pancakes were cheap, and there were only 2 of them, but Justin ate them like they were a feast. She loved that about him. His capacity for joy over small things, his resilience, his ability to find happiness in a 400-square-foot apartment, with a mother who worked 3 jobs and still could barely keep the lights on. When he finished, she walked him to the bus stop 3 blocks away, holding his hand, listening to him chatter about his best friend Marcus and the science project they were planning, and how Mrs. Chen, his teacher, said he had a gift for drawing. "You get that from me," she thought, but didn't say. The artistic gene, the thing she'd buried but couldn't kill. At the bus stop, other mothers gathered. Women with nicer coats, newer shoes, cars parked at the curb waiting to drive their children to better schools in better neighborhoods. They smiled at Lisa, polite but distant. She was the poor one, the single mother who showed up in the same worn jacket every day, who worked nights, who didn't attend the PTA meetings because she couldn't afford to take time off. They didn't mean to make her feel small. They just did. Morning. Lisa. Mrs. Patterson, one of the neighborhood mothers, offered a tight smile. "Justin doing well?" "Very well, thank you." Lisa kept her voice pleasant, her posture straight. Pride was free, even if everything else cost too much. The bus arrived. Justin hugged her fiercely. "Love you, Mama. Love you more, baby. Learned something amazing today." She watched until the bus disappeared around the corner, then began the long walk back to the apartment. She had 4 hours before her afternoon shift cleaning offices in Midtown, 4 hours to sleep, if she was lucky. But as she walked, her mind drifted to Justin's question. "Were you really a dancer?" "Yes," she wanted to say. "Yes, I was alive once. I was young and fearless and so certain the world would see me, choose me, celebrate me. I had a partner who looked at me like I hung the moon. We danced in competitions and clubs, and people cheered, and I thought that was my future. I thought I knew how my story would go. But then, Justin, the pregnancy test, Derek's ultimatum, the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. She'd chosen Justin, would always choose Justin, but somewhere in choosing him, she'd lost the ability to choose herself. Had become the woman who cleaned offices at midnight, who wore grey uniforms, who existed in the margins of other people's successful lives, who danced alone in empty conference rooms when she thought no one was watching. Back in the apartment, Lisa set her alarm for 10:45. That would give her 15 minutes to get ready before heading to her midtown job. Not enough sleep, never enough sleep, but enough to survive another day. She lay down on the mattress that served as her bed, pulled the thin blanket over herself and closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids, she saw herself at 21. Saw Derek beside her, his hand in hers, both of them laughing after winning a street competition in Washington Heights. Saw the future she'd imagined, bright and limitless and hers. Then she saw Justin's face, his gap-toothed smile, his small hand in hers at the bus stop. No contest, no regret. But still, sometimes, in the moments between sleep and waking, she let herself remember what it felt like to be seen. 3 days later, Lisa was emptying trash cans on the 39th floor when she heard footsteps approaching, quick, purposeful, not security. Security moved differently. These steps had intention, direction, the confidence of someone who belonged. She kept her head down, continuing her work. Invisible, that was the trick. Do the job well, but don't make eye contact, don't invite conversation. Blend into the walls like the furniture. "Excuse me." The voice made her freeze. Deep, cultured, the kind of voice that came from good schools and better breeding. She recognized it immediately, though she'd never heard it directed at her before. Bryce Johnson, the CEO, the man whose company employed the service that employed her. What was he doing here at 11:30 at night? Lisa turned slowly, keeping her expression neutral. Yes, sir. He stood 15 feet away, hands in the pockets of what was probably a $3,000 suit. Tall, early 40s, maybe. Dark hair with distinguished silver at the temples, the kind of handsome that came from good genetics and expensive personal trainers. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd cornered himself and now didn't know what to say. I wanted to ask you something about the cleaning supplies. Lisa blinked. The cleaning supplies, yes, the products you use. For the windows, they're very effective. She stared at him. The CEO of a creative agency worth hundreds of millions of dollars was asking her about window cleaner at 11:30 on a Thursday night. Something wasn't right here. We use standard commercial glass cleaner, sir. I can check the label if you'd like the specific brand. That would be... Yes, thank you. He didn't move. Neither did she. The silence stretched, awkward and strange. Is there something else I can help you with, Mr. Johnson? How did you... He paused. Do you know who I am? Your picture is in the lobby, sir, with the mission statement. Ah, right. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. Look, this is coming out wrong. I wanted to introduce myself properly. I'm Bryce. He extended his hand. Lisa looked at it, looked at him. Every instinct screamed danger. Rich men didn't introduce themselves to cleaning ladies at midnight. Rich men didn't care about window cleaner brands. Whatever this was, it wasn't what it appeared to be. But he was her boss's boss, and she needed this job. She set down the trash bag, wiped her palm on her uniform pants, and shook his hand briefly. Lisa Williams. His grip was warm, firm. He held on a moment too long before releasing. It's nice to meet you, Lisa. I've noticed your work. The offices are always spotless. Thank you, sir. Bryce, please. Sir makes me feel ancient. She didn't smile, didn't encourage, just waited for whatever this really was to reveal itself. He seemed to sense her wariness, took a step back, giving her space. I'm sorry. I'm making you uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. If there's nothing else, Mr. Johnson, I should get back to work. I have 6 more floors before my shift ends. Of course. Yes, I'll let you. He gestured vaguely, then stopped. Actually, can I ask you something? Just quickly. Here it comes, she thought. Whatever this really is, how long have you been with the cleaning service? 3 years. Do you like the work? It pays the bills, sir. Bryce. And that's not what I asked. Lisa met his eyes directly for the first time. With respect, Mr. Johnson, I'm not sure what you want from me, but I need to finish my route, and this conversation is making me very nervous. Something in his expression shifted, softened. You're right. I apologize. I don't actually know what I'm being. Inappropriate. Probably. The word hung between them, honest and sharp. He laughed. Actually laughed. Surprised and genuine. Okay. I deserved that. He took another step back. I'll leave you to your work, Miss Williams. Thank you for your patience with my strange questions about window cleaner. Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you have excellent posture, like a dancer. Her blood turned to ice. He didn't wait for a response, just walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway, heart hammering against her ribs. He knew. Somehow he knew. Lisa's hands shook as she picked up the trash bag. How? How could he possibly know? She'd been so careful. 3 years without anyone noticing, without anyone caring, without anyone seeing past the grey uniform and the downcast eyes. But he'd seen something, mentioned it deliberately. Posture, like a dancer, the security cameras. Oh, God, the security cameras. She'd danced in the conference room 3 nights ago. Lating, after finishing her route, thinking she was alone. She always checked that the floor was empty first, but she'd never thought about the cameras. Stupid. So stupid. He'd seen her, watched her. That's why he was here, asking bizarre questions about cleaning supplies, cornering her in an empty hallway where she couldn't refuse to talk to him. Rich men and their games, rich men and their fascination with things they thought they could own, collect, fix, save. She knew how this story went. She'd lived it before. Lisa finished her route mechanically, mind racing. At 2 a.m., she clocked out, rode the subway back to Queens, let herself into the quiet apartment. Justin was asleep, safe. Mrs. Patel next door had watched him for the price of $20 Lisa couldn't spare, but paid anyway because what choice did she have? She checked on her son, pulled the blanket up around his shoulders, kissed his forehead gently. Then she sat on her own mattress, still in her uniform, staring at the wall. A CEO had noticed her, had sought her out, had mentioned her dancing. Nothing good could come from this. She knew that with the certainty of experience, of lessons learned the hardest way possible. Men like Bryce Johnson didn't see women like her as people. They saw projects, curiosities, things to fix or save or possess. And when they got bored, when the novelty wore off, they discarded those projects without a second thought. Derek's face flashed through her mind. Not the Derek she'd loved, but the Derek who'd walked away when she told him she was pregnant, who'd given her an ultimatum as casually as ordering coffee, the baby or the dancing. Pick one. She'd pick Justin, would always pick Justin. And 7 years later, she was still paying for that choice, in 1,000 small ways the world refused to acknowledge, still invisible, still struggling, still dancing alone in empty rooms when she thought no one was watching. Except someone had been watching, and now he wanted what? To talk about it, to offer help she didn't want and couldn't trust, to play savior for his own amusement. No, she wouldn't play that game. Wouldn't be grateful for attention from someone who held all the power while she held none. Tomorrow, she'd avoid the 39th floor, stay away from places where Bryce Johnson might appear, do her job, collect her paycheck, disappear back into blessed invisibility. It was safer that way, lonelier maybe, but infinitely safer. Lisa changed out of her uniform, set her alarm for 6:30, and closed her eyes. Sleep came slowly, haunted by the memory of a hand extended, a voice saying her name, and the terrible, dangerous possibility that someone might have truly seen her. The next morning, Lisa stood at the bathroom sink, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror, 29 years old, but the woman looking back seemed older, tired, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there at 21. Hair that needed cutting but wouldn't get it because $15 for a trim meant choosing between that and Justin's new sneakers. And Justin's feet mattered more than her vanity. "Mama?" Justin's voice filtered through the thin door. "I can't find my library book. Did you check your backpack?" "Yes. Did you check under your bed?" "Oh." Pause. Found it. She smiled despite herself. Predictable. Wonderful. Normal. Today was Saturday, which meant no school, but also meant her afternoon shift at the Midtown office building started at noon. 5 hours of commercial cleaning, then home for dinner with Justin, then back to Aura Creative for the night shift. 18-hour workday. Again. But at least she had the morning. At least she had this. Lisa left the bathroom, finding Justin sitting cross-legged on his mattress, surrounded by drawings. He'd been up for an hour already, she could tell. His hair stuck up in wild angles, and he had pencil smudges on his cheek. "What are you working on, baby?" He held up a drawing. It showed 2 stick figures, one big and one small, holding hands under a sunshine with spiky rays. Above them, he'd written in careful block letters, "Me and Mama." Her throat tightened. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I'm going to make you a whole book of drawings for your birthday." "My birthday isn't until March. That's 4 months away, I know. That's why I'm starting now. I want it to be really good. Justin." Her voice came out rough. "You're the best thing in my whole world. You know that." He grinned, gap-toothed and perfect. "I know. Can we have cereal?" "Absolutely we can." They ate breakfast together at the small table. Justin chattering about the book he was reading for school, about Marcus, about the field trip next month to the Natural History Museum, the one that cost $85 she didn't have. Lisa listened, made appropriate sounds, calculated silently in her head. The rent was paid through the end of the month. Utilities due in 2 weeks. If she picked up an extra shift somewhere. If she skipped lunch for a few weeks. If she asked Mrs. Patel if she could wait a week on the babysitting payment, it might work. It had to work. She wouldn't let Justin be the only kid who couldn't go. After breakfast, she called Mrs. Patel, confirmed the babysitting for that afternoon and evening, paid her the $20 with a smile that hid the anxiety about the dwindling bills in her wallet. Then she caught the subway to Midtown, arrived at the office building with 10 minutes to spare, changed into her uniform in the service entrance bathroom. The shift passed in a blur of vacuuming, mopping, dusting, trash removal, mindless work that let her thoughts drift, and they drifted, inevitably, to the night before, to Bryce Johnson and his strange midnight appearance, to the comment about her posture. She couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop wondering what he'd seen, what he thought he knew, what he wanted. Rich men always wanted something. At 6 p.m., she clocked out, rode the subway back to Queens, picked up Justin from Mrs. Patel's, made him dinner from the contents of their near-empty fridge. Grilled cheese sandwiches and apple slices. He ate happily, unaware that this represented the last of the bread and the last of the cheese, until her paycheck cleared on Monday. Then the evening routine, homework supervision, bath time, bedtime story from the library book he'd almost forgotten. She tucked him in, sang him the lullaby her own mother had sung to her before everything fell apart. At 9:15, she changed back into her uniform, kissed Justin's sleeping forehead, locked the apartment door, and headed back to Manhattan, back to Aura Creative. Back to the place where someone had watched her dance and decided to make her his project. She took the service elevator to the 23rd floor, clocked in, began her route. Started on the 47th floor this time, working her way down, strategic. If Bryce Johnson was working late again, he'd be on 39. She'd stay far away. But at 11:30, as she emptied trash cans on the 41st floor, the elevator dinged. Doors opened, and Bryce Johnson stepped out, looking like he'd been searching for something, looking like he'd been searching for her. "Miss Williams." His voice was quiet, careful. "I was hoping I'd run into you." Lisa kept her expression neutral, though her heart raced. "Mr. Johnson, is there a problem with the cleaning?" "No, no problem. I wanted to apologize for last night. I made you uncomfortable, and that was wrong of me. Apology accepted, sir." "If that's all, I need to finish my route. It's not all." He took a breath. "Can I be honest with you? I'd prefer you just let me do my job." "Fair enough. But hear me out. 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Lisa said nothing, waited. He seemed to take that as permission. "I saw you 3 nights ago on the security feed, dancing in the conference room on 23. Her stomach dropped. "I know I shouldn't have watched. I know that was a violation of your privacy, and I'm genuinely sorry, but I did watch. And—" He paused, searching for words. "It was the most beautiful thing I've seen in years. Maybe ever." Lisa's voice came out flat. "Is this the part where you tell me I could be a star if someone just gave me a chance?" "No. This is the part where I tell you I run a creative agency, and next month we're launching a major campaign for a streetwear brand. We need authentic choreography. Street dance, real and raw, and you're exactly what we need. I'm a cleaning lady, Mr. Johnson. You're a dancer, an extraordinary one, and I'd like to offer you a consulting position. Good pay, your name credited, a real opportunity to do what you're clearly meant to do. Lisa stared at him, tried to find the angle, the catch, the inevitable cruelty hidden in apparent kindness. Why? She asked simply. Because talent shouldn't be wasted. Because you deserve better than this. Because, he stopped, because I saw you and I can't unsee you and I have the power to help, so why wouldn't I? You don't know anything about me. Then tell me why someone with your gifts is cleaning offices at midnight instead of performing. The anger rose swift and hot. You think I chose this? You think I looked at my life and thought, yes, this is exactly what I want? No. I think something happened. Something that made you give up dancing. And I think you miss it. Lisa's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream at him, wanted to tell him about Derek, about the ultimatum, about choosing her son over her dreams and never regretting it. But God, sometimes missing who she'd been with an ache that never quite faded. Instead, she said, I have a son. He's 7. I work 3 jobs to keep a roof over his head and food in his stomach. I don't have time for dreams, Mr. Johnson. I don't have the luxury of what-ifs and maybes. I have reality. And reality says I need to finish my shift so I can sleep for 3 hours before I have to get my kid ready for school. How much do you make? From all 3 jobs combined. The question was too personal, but she answered anyway, too tired to care. Not enough, never enough. I'll pay you $5,000 to choreograph one piece for this campaign. 8 weeks of work, plus you keep all 3 of your current jobs if you want. This is extra. Not instead. $5,000. The number echoed in her head. That was the field trip. That was new shoes for Justin. That was the security deposit she'd need if their landlord raised the rent again. That was impossible. Why would you do this? Her voice cracked. You don't even know me. Bryce's expression softened. Maybe that's exactly why. Because I saw something real, and real is so rare in my world that I can't let it slip away. Because helping you helps me remember why I started this company in the first place. Because I've been empty for a long time, Miss Williams. And watching you dance made me remember what feeling alive looks like. The honesty in his voice was worse than calculation would have been. She could defend against manipulation, against this naked vulnerability. She had no armor. I can't, she said quietly. I appreciate the offer, really, but I can't. Why not? Because men like you don't help women like me without expecting something in return. Because I've been the project before, the one someone decided to fix, and when it didn't work out the way they wanted, they threw me away. Because I can't afford to hope for something better only to have it destroy me when it disappears. Bryce absorbed this like a physical blow. What if I promised? Don't promise anything, just let me go back to being invisible. It's safer that way, for you or for me. The question hung between them, unanswerable. Lisa picked up her trash bag. Good night, Mr. Johnson. This time, he didn't try to stop her, just watched as she walked away, his expression something she couldn't quite name. Regret, maybe, or recognition of a door closing before he could step through it. She finished her route with mechanical efficiency, avoiding the 39th floor entirely, clocked out at 2 a.m., rode the subway home, checked on Justin, lay down on her mattress, and stared at the ceiling, thinking about $5,000, about dancing, about a man who'd seen her and couldn't unsee her, and whether that was the most dangerous thing in the world or the most tempting. Sunday afternoon, Lisa stood in her apartment, cleaning. Not because it was dirty, but because she couldn't sit still, couldn't stop her mind from racing. Justin was at Marcus's house for a playdate, giving her 3 rare hours alone. She should be sleeping, should be resting, should be doing literally anything except thinking about Bryce Johnson and his impossible offer, $5,000. The number kept circling back, persistent and seductive. She shouldn't even be considering it. Should have dismissed it entirely, the way she'd learned to dismiss hope years ago. Hope was expensive. Hope came with interest rates that compounded until they buried you. But God, $5,000. Lisa opened the closet, the one that held more than just clothes. At the back, behind her 3 work uniforms and the single dress she owned for emergencies, was a cardboard box. She hadn't opened it in years, hadn't let herself. Now alone in the apartment, she pulled it out. Inside, remnants of the life she'd left behind, dance shoes worn through at the toes, competition trophies from street battles in Washington Heights, the Bronx, Brooklyn, photographs of her and Derek, young and fearless and so certain the world belonged to them, and at the bottom her old phone, dead battery, but she'd kept the charger. Why? She'd asked herself that 100 times. Why hold on to the thing she'd sworn to leave behind? Lisa plugged it in, waited for it to power up, that old familiar anxiety building in her chest. The screen flickered to life, 47% battery remaining, like it had been waiting for her, patient and eternal. She opened the photo gallery, scrolled through images from 2015, 2016, 2017. There she was, 21, 22, the girl who'd believed in her own invincibility, videos too. Competitions they'd won, practices in the studio they'd rented for $200 a month, barely bigger than her current apartment, but feeling limitless because they'd shared it. Her and Derek, moving together like they'd been choreographed by the universe itself. She clicked on one video, watched herself at 22, executing a combination that had won them first place at a major competition. The crowd cheering. Derek grinning beside her, pulling her in for a victory kiss, both of them sweaty and euphoric and alive. When had she stopped feeling alive? The video ended. The next one auto-played. Same competition. But this was after. Just the 2 of them in the studio, Derek filming while Lisa danced solo. She'd been workshopping a new routine, something contemporary fused with hip-hop. He'd watched from behind the camera, and she could hear his voice on the recording. "You're everything, Lisa. Everything." She closed her eyes, remembered that moment, remembered believing him, remembered thinking their future was secured, written in the stars, inevitable as sunrise, then remembered standing in that same studio 6 months later, hand on her barely visible belly, telling him the news, watching his face change, watching the man she loved transform into a stranger who looked at her like she'd betrayed him. "You have to choose. The baby or our career. You can't have both. Why not? Women have babies and careers all the time. Not in this world, not in street dance. You get pregnant, you're out for at least a year, maybe more. We're just getting somewhere, Lisa. This is our shot. Don't throw it away. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing to be a mother. Then you're choosing to quit." His voice had been cold. Final. "I'm not raising a kid. I'm 25 years old. I have plans, and they don't include diapers and soccer practice. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying choose. The baby or me, urban pulse or single motherhood, your dreams or his existence." And just like that, the man she'd loved revealed himself to be someone she didn't know at all. Someone who could reduce their relationship, their partnership, their future to an ultimatum delivered like a business transaction. She'd chosen Justin, obviously, immediately, without hesitation. But Derek had walked away like she meant nothing, like 3 years meant nothing. Like every promise they'd made in the dark of his tiny bedroom meant less than nothing. And the dance community, they'd chosen him. Of course they had. He was charismatic, talented, driven. She was the girl who got knocked up and couldn't hang. The cautionary tale, the one who'd wasted her potential. Within months, Urban Pulse had rebranded. Derek was the sole face of it, the single star, the genius choreographer who'd emerged from the underground to take New York by storm. Any mention of Lisa disappeared, videos edited to feature him more prominently, their shared victories rewritten as his solo accomplishments. He'd erased her, completely, methodically, with the thoroughness of someone who couldn't afford to let the past complicate his present, and she'd let him. Because she had a baby to prepare for, bills to pay, a new life to build from nothing, because fighting for recognition felt less important than fighting for survival. 7 years later, she was still surviving, still invisible, still dancing alone when she thought no one was watching, except someone had watched, and now he wanted to give her something that looked dangerously like a second chance. Lisa's phone rang, shattering the silence. Marcus's mom, letting her know she was bringing Justin home early because Marcus had a stomachache. Lisa thanked her, hung up, and quickly put the old phone away, buried it back in the box, shoved the box back into the closet, closed the door on memories that hurt too much to hold for long. But something had shifted, something she couldn't quite name. By the time Justin arrived home, cheerful despite Marcus's illness, she'd made a decision. Maybe the wrong one. Probably the wrong one, but a decision nonetheless. Monday evening, Lisa found herself standing outside the executive offices of Aura Creative at 6 p.m., wearing the only dress she owned, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She'd called the main number that afternoon, asked to leave a message for Bryce Johnson. The receptionist had been surprised but professional, taking Lisa's name and number, promising to pass along the message. 2 hours later, her phone had rung. Not Bryce, but his assistant, Cameron. He'd introduced himself. Warm voice, immediately kind. "Mr. Johnson is very pleased you called. He'd like to meet with you tomorrow at 6. Is that possible?" She'd said yes before she could overthink it. Now here she stood, questioning every decision that had led to this moment. The elevator opened. A man stepped out, younger than Bryce by a decade, impeccably dressed, openly gay if the pride pin on his lapel was any indication. He spotted her immediately, smile widening. "You must be Lisa. I'm Cameron Torres, Bryce's assistant and occasional voice of reason." He extended his hand. She shook it, grateful for his easy warmth. "Thank you for meeting with us. Bryce is, well, he's excited, nervous, actually, but he'd kill me for telling you that. Come on. I'll take you to his office." They walked through the executive floor, all modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of aggressive minimalism that screamed expensive taste. Other employees glanced at her curiously. She didn't belong here. Everything about her, from her Target dress to her worn shoes, announced that truth. Cameron seemed to sense her discomfort. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I've worked for Bryce for 6 years. He's not perfect, but he's decent. Whatever he offered you, he means it. He's not playing games. How do you know what he offered me?" Cameron grinned. "I know everything that happens in this office. It's literally my job. Also, he's been insufferable for days, alternating between hopeful and convinced you'd never call. It's been adorable and exhausting in equal measure." Despite herself, Lisa smiled. "Sounds annoying. You have no idea. Ah, here we are." He knocked on a door, opened it without waiting for response. "Boss, your 6 o'clock is here." Bryce stood from behind his desk, and Lisa was struck again by how he looked. Different in full light, in his own space. Less like the uncomfortable man who'd cornered her in a hallway, and more like someone who belonged exactly where he was. Except his hands were shaking. "Miss Williams, thank you for coming. Please, sit." He gestured to the chairs across from his desk. Cameron excused himself with a theatrical wink that made Lisa want to laugh despite her nerves. She sat. Bryce sat. Silence stretched between them, awkward and loaded. Finally, he spoke. "I'm glad you called. I thought I'd ruined any chance of you trusting me." "You kind of did," Lisa said honestly, "but I need the money, and I miss it. Dancing, creating, being something other than invisible." Bryce's expression softened. "You were never invisible." "Not to me. You watched me without permission through a security camera. That's not seeing me, that's surveilling me." He winced. "You're right, completely right. I violated your privacy, and I'm sorry, genuinely sorry." Lisa appreciated the apology, but didn't let it distract her. "Tell me what you want. Specifically, no vague promises. What exactly are you offering?" Bryce pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. "This is the contract. Consulting choreographer for the Velocity streetwear campaign. 8 weeks of work, flexible schedule to accommodate your other jobs. $5,000 upon completion, plus creative credit in all marketing materials." She opened the folder, scanned the contract. It looked legitimate, professional, not a trap, at least not an obvious one. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You create the choreography. We execute the campaign. Your name gets seen by potentially millions of people. Everyone wins. And when you get bored of this project, when the novelty wears off..." Bryce met her eyes steadily. "Then you'll have $5,000 and a professional credit you can use to build your own future. This isn't charity, Lisa. This is me recognizing talent and making a smart business decision." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. "I need one thing clear," she said quietly. "I'm not your project. I'm not something you're fixing or saving. I'm a working professional, and if I do this, it's because I earned it. Agreed, completely agreed. And if this goes wrong, if you screw me over, I'm not going to thank you for the opportunity and disappear quietly. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are." Bryce smiled, and it was genuine. "Fair enough. Deal." He extended his hand. She looked at it, looked at him, thought about Justin and the field trip and $5,000 and the chance to dance again, publicly, proudly, with her name attached. She took his hand. Deal. The next morning, Lisa stood in the small dance studio on the 32nd floor of Aura Creative, feeling like an imposter in her own skin. The studio wasn't large, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet, with mirrors along one wall and a sound system in the corner. But it was clean, bright, hers to use for the next 8 weeks. "Impossible. This is where you'll work," Cameron had explained, giving her the tour the day before. "We use it for movement-based campaigns. It's available pretty much always, so feel free to come whenever. Your badge will give you access, her badge, her official Aura Creative Consulting badge, with her photo and her name and the word choreographer beneath it. Lisa Williams, choreographer." She'd stared at it for 5 minutes last night, unable to reconcile the title with the woman who'd been emptying trash cans 12 hours earlier. Now, alone in the studio, she walked to the mirror, looked at her reflection. She'd worn yoga pants and a tank top borrowed from a thrift store, her hair pulled back in a bun, dancer clothes. She'd forgotten how different she felt in them, less invisible, more like the person she'd been before survival became her only art form. Tentatively, she stretched, touched her toes, felt her hamstrings protest. 3 years of janitorial work had left her body tight, forgotten. But the muscle memory was there, buried under layers of exhaustion and neglect. She rolled her shoulders, lifted onto her toes, tested her balance. The door opened. Lisa jumped, spinning around. A young man stood in the doorway, mid-20s, black, with an easy smile and intelligent eyes. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. I'm Malik, junior designer on the Velocity campaign." "Lisa, but you probably knew that. Everyone knows that. You're all the boss has talked about for a week." He extended his hand. She shook it. "It's an honor to meet you." I used to watch Urban Pulse videos when I was in high school. You were incredible. Her breath caught. You know Urban Pulse. Are you kidding? You guys were legends. That battle in Washington Heights where you went up against 3 crews solo and destroyed them. I must have watched that video 100 times. That was years ago. Yeah, well, good dancing doesn't expire. Malik's smile was genuine, warm. I'm really excited to work with you. Vanessa, our creative director, asked me to check if you need anything. Equipment, music, coffee, moral support. Lisa felt herself relaxing slightly. Coffee would be amazing, actually. On it, how do you take it? Black, 2 sugars. Woman after my own heart. Be right back. He disappeared, leaving Lisa alone with her reflection again. Someone remembered. Someone had watched those old videos, knew who she was, thought she was incredible. When was the last time someone had looked at her and seen the dancer instead of the cleaning lady? Malik returned with coffee, along with a woman in her late 30s, sharply dressed, carrying herself with the confidence of someone used to being in charge. Lisa, this is Vanessa Chen. She's leading the creative team for Velocity. Vanessa extended her hand, her expression skeptical but polite. Nice to meet you. Bryce speaks highly of your work. Lisa shook her hand, reading the subtext clearly. Vanessa didn't know her, didn't trust her, and wasn't thrilled about her boss hiring an unknown janitor to choreograph a major campaign. Fair enough. I look forward to seeing what you can do, Vanessa continued. We have a presentation to Velocity executives in 6 weeks. I'll need to see your choreography concepts by week 4. Understood. Vanessa nodded, already turning to leave. Malik lingered. Don't worry about her, he said quietly once Vanessa was gone. She's like that with everyone, protective of the work. Once she sees what you can do, she'll come around. What if I can't do it? Lisa heard herself ask. What if I'm too rusty? What if I forgot how? Malik looked at her seriously. Did you forget how to breathe? How to feel your heartbeat? No. Then you didn't forget how to dance. Dancing isn't something you learn. It's something you are. The words settled into her chest, familiar and foreign at once. After Malik left, Lisa stood in the center of the studio, put in her headphones, selected a track from her old phone, one she and Derek used to practice to. The music filled her ears. Hip-hop beat, old school, the kind that made your body want to move before your brain gave permission. She closed her eyes, let the rhythm find her. And slowly, carefully, like greeting an old friend she wasn't sure would recognize her, Lisa Williams began to dance. Her body resisted at first. Tight muscles, forgotten pathways, the weight of 7 years of exhaustion. But underneath that, the foundation remained, the training, the thousands of hours, the love of movement that no amount of survival could quite kill. She stumbled, caught herself, tried again. By the time the song ended, she was sweating, breathing hard, and smiling for the first time in longer than she could remember. She'd forgotten this feeling, this aliveness, this sense of being more than the sum of her responsibilities. The door opened again. Bryce stood there, not entering, just watching. How long had he been there? Sorry, he said. I didn't want to interrupt. You were... He stopped. You were beautiful. I was rusty. You were perfect. Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead, self-conscious under his gaze. I should get back to work. This is work. Right. She laughed, the sound sharp and uncertain. I keep forgetting. Bryce stepped into the studio, hands in his pockets, trying to look casual and failing. Look, I know this is strange for you, trust me. It's strange for me too. I don't usually... He gestured vaguely. This isn't how I normally operate. How do you normally operate? Very carefully. Very safely. Not breaking rules to hire people I saw on security footage. Why did you... Really? He was quiet for a long moment. Because my mother was an artist, a painter, genuinely talented. But she gave it up when she married my father, became a wife, a mother, a fixture at charity events. Her art supplies gathered dust, and every year I watched her fade a little more, become a little less herself, until the cancer came, and by then he stopped. By then there wasn't enough of her left to fight. I'm sorry, I am too. Every day, Bryce met her eyes. When I saw you dancing, I saw her, saw all the artists who hide their gifts because the world demands they be something smaller, something more convenient, and I thought, maybe this time I could help someone stay visible, stay alive, stay themselves. Lisa's throat tightened. That's a lot of weight to put on a choreography gig. I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make this about me. I wanted you to understand why I'm doing this. She nodded slowly. Okay. I understand. Good. Great. He backed toward the door. I'll let you work. But Lisa, thank you for giving this a chance, for giving me a chance. After he left, Lisa stood alone in the studio, her heart beating hard for reasons that had nothing to do with the dancing. This was dangerous. She could feel it. Not in the way Derek had been dangerous with his cruelty and ultimatums, but dangerous in a different way. In the way that hope was dangerous, in the way that being seen could shatter you if the seeing eventually stopped. But she'd already said yes, already signed the contract, already started dancing again. All she could do now was try not to fall apart when it inevitably ended. Week 1 of choreography development passed in a blur of muscle memory and careful rediscovery. Lisa found herself in the studio most afternoons, working with Malik and 2 young dancers Aura had hired specifically for the Velocity campaign. Tasha, 19, Latina, with the kind of enthusiasm that made Lisa remember her own younger self, and Marcus, 22, technically brilliant but searching for something deeper in his movement. Teaching them felt strange at first, her voice uncertain, hesitant, offering corrections like apologies. But her body remembered what her confidence had forgotten: isolations, flow, the way weight transferred from one foot to the other, how momentum could be stolen or given freely. All those thousands of hours of training still lived in her muscles, patient and waiting. Marcus, try that sequence again, but let your chest lead instead of your shoulders. Lisa demonstrated, her body moving before her mind could second guess. Like this. Feel how it changes the quality. Marcus copied the movement, eyes widening with recognition. Oh, that's sick. Tasha filmed the combinations on her phone for reference, posting short clips to the private campaign channel the creative team used for internal collaboration. Within hours, someone commented, "Is that Lisa from Urban Pulse?" Lisa's stomach dropped. She asked Malik to take down the post. Why? His confusion was genuine. People are excited. Please, just take it down. He complied, though she could see the questions in his eyes, questions she couldn't answer without explaining Derek and the ultimatum and 7 years of carefully constructed invisibility. The session continued. Lisa created a 16-count combination for the campaign opening, something powerful but accessible. Her signature style emerging despite the rust, despite the years. The dancers picked it up quickly, adding their own flavor while maintaining the foundation she'd built. From the doorway, Vanessa watched with an expression that had shifted from skepticism to something that might have been respect. When the session ended, she approached Lisa. That was good work. Her voice was measured, professional. Keep developing in that direction. We'll review progress next week. Small victories. Lisa held on to them. The challenge was the schedule. 5 hours at the studio in the afternoon, then rushing home for a few hours with Justin before heading to her night shift at Aura Creative. Different building, different floor, but the same company. She'd kept all 3 of her janitorial jobs. unable to trust that the $5,000 was real until she held it in her hands. By the end of the week, exhaustion had become her constant companion. She was running on 3 hours of sleep, adrenaline, and the dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, she could have both: the career and the child, the art and the survival. Late Friday night, she was cleaning the 41st floor when Bryce appeared, not seeking her out this time, just working late in his own office, but he noticed her passing, stepped into the hallway. "You should go home." His voice was gentle. "You look exhausted. I need to finish my route." "Lisa, you're paying for this studio time with your sleep. That's not sustainable. It's what I can afford. What if—" He paused, calculating. "What if we paid you a stipend during these 8 weeks, enough that you could drop one of your other jobs?" The offer was tempting, dangerously so, but Lisa had learned not to depend on things that could disappear. "I appreciate it, but no. I'll manage." "You're going to burn out." "I've been burning out for 7 years, Mr. Johnson." "I know how to manage the flames." Something in his expression shifted, softened. "Fair enough, but Lisa, if you need anything, I'll let you know." She wouldn't, of course, but he didn't need to know that. That night, back in her apartment, Justin was already asleep. Mrs. Patel had put him to bed, left a note saying he'd done his homework and eaten dinner. $20 Lisa couldn't spare, but paid anyway because what choice did she have? She stood in the doorway of their shared room, watching her son sleep. 7 years old and growing so fast. Soon he'd be too big for the twin mattress on the floor. Soon he'd need more space, more privacy, more of everything she couldn't afford to give him. But for now, he was safe, fed, loved. That had to be enough. Lisa collapsed onto her own mattress, set her alarm for 6:30, and fell into sleep, like falling into water, deep and dreamless, and far too brief. Week 2 began on a Tuesday morning. Lisa arrived at the studio at 2 p.m., having slept through her alarm and missed her midtown cleaning shift. Panic had driven her here instead, knowing she couldn't afford to miss the choreography work. The midtown job paid $8 an hour. This paid, well, considerably more per hour, even if the total was fixed. Mathematics of desperation. She'd gotten good at that kind of math. The studio was empty when she arrived. She changed into her borrowed dance clothes, stretched carefully, began warming up, reviewing the combinations they'd built last week, thinking about where to take them next. The door opened. Lisa turned, expecting Malik or one of the dancers. Instead, a man walked in, tall, handsome, moving with the casual confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to occupy space. He wore designer streetwear, expensive sneakers, an easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Lisa's entire body went rigid. Derek Parker, 7 years older than the last time she'd seen him, but unmistakably him. The man who'd looked at her pregnant belly like it was a betrayal, who'd given her an ultimatum delivered with the emotional weight of ordering coffee, who'd erased her from their shared history with the thoroughness of someone protecting their personal brand. He stopped when he saw her. Recognition flickered across his face, quickly masked by professional neutrality. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, loaded with 7 years of anger and grief and carefully buried pain. Then Derek smiled, extended his hand like they were strangers meeting for the first time. "Hi, I'm Derek Parker. You must be the choreographer Vanessa mentioned." "Lisa, right?" He was pretending he didn't know her. Lisa's hands curled into fists at her sides. "Yes, Lisa Williams. Nice to meet you." Derek's voice was smooth, practiced. "Vanessa asked me to consult on the street dance elements for the Velocity campaign. I'll be observing some sessions, offering feedback. I hope that's okay with you, of course." Her voice came out flat, emotionless. "Whatever you need. Great. Looking forward to working together." He left before she could respond. left her standing alone in the studio, heart hammering against her ribs, the carefully constructed walls around her past crumbling like paper in rain. Derek was here, working on her campaign, the campaign that was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to be visible again, and he was going to pretend she didn't exist again. Lisa made it to the bathroom before the tears came, locked herself in a stall, pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle the sound. She hadn't cried over Derek in years, hadn't let herself, but seeing him, having him look at her like she was nobody, like 3 years of partnership and love and shared dreams meant absolutely nothing. She'd thought she was past this, thought she'd healed. Turned out she'd just gotten better at ignoring the wound. After 10 minutes, she washed her face, fixed her appearance, returned to the studio. Tasha and Marcus had arrived, chatting about something on their phones. They looked up when she entered. "You okay?" Tasha's concern was immediate, genuine. "Fine, just let's get to work." They ran through combinations, created new sequences. Lisa taught with mechanical efficiency, her body moving while her mind screamed. At 3:30, Vanessa appeared with Derek. "Lisa, this is Derek Parker. He's consulting on the campaign. Derek, this is Lisa Williams, our choreographer. We actually met earlier." Derek's smile was professionally warm. "I'm impressed with what I'm seeing. Lisa's work has great energy." "Thank you." Lisa forced herself to meet his eyes. "Your feedback would be valuable. You have more experience in this industry than I do." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or the first hint of discomfort at her politeness. The session continued with Derek watching from the corner, taking notes, offering occasional suggestions that subtly undermined her choices while appearing helpful. Lisa felt his presence like a weight, pressing down on her shoulders, making it harder to breathe. When the session ended, Derek approached her as the dancers gathered their things. "Can we talk?" His voice was low, private. Lisa glanced at Tasha and Marcus. They were busy with their phones, not paying attention. About what? Derek moved closer, dropped the pretense. "What are you doing here, Lisa? Working, same as you. This is my world now. I've built this. You can't just—" He stopped. "You left. You made your choice. You gave me an ultimatum. That's not the same as choosing. You chose the baby. I chose my son." Lisa's voice was quiet but fierce. "His name is Justin. He's 7 years old. He's smart and kind and the best thing that ever happened to me." Derek's jaw tightened. "Does he know about me? Why would he? You made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with him. I was 25. I wasn't ready. And now, I have a career, a reputation, a life I've built, and I need to protect that by pretending I don't exist, by keeping our past private." Derek's voice took on an edge. "Look, I don't want to be difficult, but if people connect you to Urban Pulse, to me, it complicates things, for both of us." "How exactly does it complicate things for me? You don't want people knowing you walked away from dance for 7 years, that you became—" He gestured at her worn clothes, her practical hairstyle. "What you became, a mother, a quitter." The word hit like a slap. Lisa forced herself to stay calm. "What do you want, Derek? I want us to be professional, strangers who happen to be working on the same project. Can you do that?" Lisa thought about arguing, about going to Bryce, to Vanessa, explaining their history. But what would she say? That Derek had abandoned her 7 years ago, that he'd erased her from their shared past. What did any of that matter to a company focused on a successful campaign? Derek was established, successful, connected. She was a janitor playing dress-up as a choreographer. Who would they believe? "Fine," she said quietly. "Strangers it is. Good." Derek's relief was visible. "This doesn't have to be weird. We do the work and stay out of each other's way." Agreed. He left. Lisa stayed in the studio, staring at her reflection in the mirror, seeing the girl she'd been at 22, in love and fearless. Seeing the woman she was at 29, tired and invisible, and trying so hard to believe she deserved to take up space. Derek was right about one thing. She had walked away, had chosen Justin over the art, the career, the world that had seemed so important, but he was wrong about the rest. She hadn't quit, she'd survived, and survival was its own kind of art, even if nobody recognized it, even if nobody saw. The next 3 weeks became an exercise in careful avoidance wrapped in forced professionalism. Lisa and Derek occupied the same studio, the same meetings, the same creative spaces, while pretending their shared history existed only in their individual memories. He was good at it, better than she was. Derek had years of practice erasing her, after all. She was just learning. In meetings, he'd offer suggestions that sounded supportive, but subtly undermined her work. Not stealing, obviously, just repositioning her ideas as building blocks for his vision. Vanessa and the team didn't notice. Why would they? Derek Parker was famous. Lisa Williams was nobody. Malik noticed, though. One afternoon, after Derek had spent 20 minutes explaining how Lisa's choreography needed adjustments that would essentially make it his, Malik pulled her aside. "He's doing it on purpose. You know that, right? Doing what? Making you look incompetent. I've seen him do it before. To other artists. It's his signature move." Lisa's exhaustion made her honest. "What am I supposed to do about it? He's Derek Parker. I'm a cleaning lady who got lucky." "You're not lucky. You're talented." Malik's intensity surprised her. "That routine you did yesterday, the one he said was too aggressive. I've worked with a dozen choreographers, and none of them have your emotional depth. Don't let him gaslight you into forgetting that." The words settled into her chest, warm and unexpected. "Thank you." "I'm serious, Lisa. Don't let him take this from you." But it was already happening. Slowly, methodically, Derek was doing to her present what he'd done to her past, erasing her while appearing helpful, stealing her work while claiming collaboration. And there was nothing she could do about it, not without exposing their history, which would only make her look worse. The jilted ex who couldn't handle working with someone more successful. The single mother who'd wasted her potential and now blamed others for her choices. The narrative practically wrote itself. In the studio one evening, after everyone else had left, Derek cornered her again. "You're doing well." His voice carried false encouragement, better than I expected, honestly. "Thanks, I mean it. For someone who's been out of the game for 7 years, you're holding your own." "Is there something you actually want to say, Derek? Or are you just here to remind me how irrelevant I am?" His expression hardened. "I'm trying to be nice." "No. You're trying to keep me small. Keep me grateful. Keep me from remembering that I was just as good as you before you forced me to choose between my career and my child. That's not fair." "Fair!" Lisa's voice rose despite her best efforts. "You walked away when I got pregnant. Told me I had to choose. Erased me from Urban Pulse like I'd never existed. And now you're here, doing it again. And I'm supposed to be grateful that you're being nice about it. I'm protecting my career by destroying mine." Derek stepped closer. "You don't have a career, Lisa. You have a pity hire from a CEO who saw you dancing on a security camera. That's not the same thing." The cruelty in his voice was almost refreshing. At least it was honest. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm nobody. Just a single mother who cleans toilets and dares to think she might deserve something better. How foolish of me, Lisa." He sighed. "I didn't mean it like that." "Yes, you did. And you know what? You're probably right. I probably don't deserve to be here, but I am here. And I'm going to do the best work I can, whether you help me or destroy me, because unlike you, I'm not afraid of being irrelevant. I've been irrelevant for 7 years. It's actually quite liberating." She left before he could respond. Went home to her tiny apartment, to Justin sleeping peacefully, to the life she'd built from nothing. Derek thought he could break her again, thought he could make her disappear with the same ease he'd managed 7 years ago. He was wrong. She'd survived worse than Derek Parker, survived poverty and exhaustion and the grinding daily humiliation of being invisible, survived by choosing her son every single day and never regretting it. If Derek wanted to play games, fine. She'd play, but she wouldn't lose. Not this time. Week 4 arrived with a deadline looming. Vanessa called a meeting to review progress. The full creative team assembled in the large conference room, along with Derek and, oh, surprisingly, Bryce. Lisa's stomach knotted as she took her seat. Something felt wrong. The energy in the room was off, careful, like everyone knew something she didn't. Vanessa opened the meeting with professional efficiency. We have 6 weeks until the velocity presentation. I need to see clear direction today. Lisa, you're up first. Show us what you've developed. Lisa stood, walked to the front of the room, connected her laptop to the projector. She'd prepared a presentation showing the choreography concepts, the creative vision, the story she was trying to tell through movement. But as she began speaking, Derek interrupted. Actually, Vanessa, I had a thought about the creative direction that might help clarify things. Vanessa nodded. Go ahead. Derek stood, smooth and confident. Lisa's foundational work has been good. Really good. But Velocity is looking for something specific. The impossible moment. The shot everyone wants to recreate. The moment that defines the campaign. Lisa's presentation hung frozen on the screen, half explained. Derek continued. I took the liberty of drafting a brief that might help focus our efforts. He passed around printed documents. This outlines what we need to deliver. Lisa took the paper, scanned it quickly. Her chest tightened. The brief was impossible. Partner work requiring 2 lead dancers in perfect sync. Suspension and lift moments demanding years of training. Seamless transitions between 3 distinct dance styles. All executable by amateur dancers for user-generated content. Telling a narrative story in 90 seconds, 10 days to complete. Lisa's voice came out uncertain. This is extremely ambitious. That's the point. Derek's smile was encouraging, professional. Velocity wants to push boundaries, to create something that feels impossible but achievable. That's what makes content viral. Vanessa studied the brief. This is comprehensive. Can you execute this, Lisa? The question hung in the air, every eye in the room on her. Lisa thought about saying no, thought about explaining that what Derek was asking for wasn't just ambitious, it was deliberately impossible, a setup designed to make her fail. But she also thought about Justin, about $5,000, about the field trip and the new shoes and the chance to keep dancing, even if Derek was sabotaging her. Yes, her voice was steady. I can do this. Excellent. Vanessa made notes. We'll review your progress in 1 week. Derek will provide support and consultation. Derek's expression was sympathetic. I'm here to help, Lisa, whatever you need. After the meeting, Lisa stayed behind, staring at the brief. Impossible didn't begin to describe it. Bryce approached her carefully. Are you okay? Did you know about this? About Derek's brief? No, I wasn't aware. He looked at the document. This seems excessive. It's designed to make me fail. Can you prove that? Lisa met his eyes. Can you prove I'm good enough to be here, or am I just the janitor you took pity on? The question was unfair, but she was past caring about fair. Bryce absorbed it like a blow. You're here because you're talented, not because I pity you. Then why do I feel like I'm drowning? Because someone is trying to pull you under. He hesitated. Let me hire additional support, a partner dancer, technical consultants. No. Lisa's voice was firm. If I do this, I do it myself. That's the only way I'll know if I actually deserve to be here. You have nothing to prove. Yes, I do. To Derek, to Vanessa, to myself. I've spent 7 years being invisible. Bryce, I'm not going back to that just because someone made the test harder. Let me help. You can't help. Not with this. This is between me and Derek and the truth about who I am when nobody's watching. She left him standing there, walked to the studio, locked the door behind her. Spent the next 8 hours working on choreography that seemed designed to break her. By 2 a.m., she was crying from frustration. By 4 a.m., she'd created something that might, possibly, if everything went perfectly, work. By 6:30, she was waking Justin for school, pretending she'd slept, pretending everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. Derek had set her up to fail, and she had 10 days to prove him wrong. 10 days of barely sleeping, of working through lunch breaks and teaching Justin his homework between combinations, of her body screaming and her mind fragmenting from exhaustion. But she did it. Somehow, impossibly, Lisa created choreography that met every requirement in Derek's brief partner work that told a story. Transitions that flowed like water, movements complex enough to impress professionals but simple enough for amateurs to attempt. It was good, maybe the best work she'd ever done. The day before the Velocity presentation, she filmed a rough version with Tasha and Marcus, sent it to the internal team for review, then went home, kissed Justin goodnight, and collapsed into sleep that felt like surrender. At 6 a.m., her phone exploded with calls. Lisa answered groggily. "Hello?" Vanessa's voice sharp with panic. "Lisa, what did you do?" "What? I sent the video last night. Did you watch it? It's on a rival agency's Instagram. They're launching an identical campaign today." The words didn't make sense. Lisa sat up, suddenly awake. That's impossible, but it was true. She pulled up Instagram on her phone, found the rival agency's account. There was her choreography, her exact choreography. Different branding, different dancers, but unmistakably her work. Posted 3 hours ago. How? Her voice came out broken. "I only sent it to the team. How did they get it? That's what we need to figure out." "Emergency meeting in 2 hours. Be there." Vanessa hung up. Lisa sat on her mattress, staring at her phone, trying to understand what had happened, trying to understand how this was possible. But deep down, she already knew. Derek. The boardroom was full when Lisa arrived at 8 a.m. Executives she'd never met. Vanessa looking grim. Derek sitting with false concern. And Bryce standing by the window, his expression unreadable. Someone leaked the Velocity campaign. Vanessa's voice was ice. "We need to know who." All eyes turned to Lisa, the newest person, the most vulnerable, the one nobody really trusted. Derek spoke first, his voice gentle, concerned. "Lisa, did you share the files with anyone, even accidentally?" "No, only the internal team." One of the executives leaned forward. "Miss Williams, you have access to all our offices, including the design studios." Lisa's blood went cold. "You think I stole my own work? Your email sent the file to an external address." Vanessa pulled up evidence on the conference room screen, 2:17 a.m. 5 days ago. "From your account." "I didn't send that." Lisa heard the desperation in her own voice. I needed this job," Derek interjected carefully. "Maybe your phone was hacked. You mentioned using a personal device for work." The implication was clear. Poor security, desperate circumstances. Easy target for corporate espionage. Lisa looked at Bryce, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend her, believe her, remember who she was. He wouldn't meet her eyes. The Velocity executive on the video call spoke, his voice hard. "Aura, if you can't secure your operations, we're terminating the contract. $8 million hung in the balance. $8 million or Lisa Williams." The math was simple. Vanessa looked at Bryce. "We need a decision." Bryce finally spoke, his voice distant, professional. "Miss Williams, your contract is suspended pending investigation. You're firing me." Not a question, a statement. Suspending, until we understand what happened. Lisa stood, her legs somehow still supporting her weight. "You know me. You know I wouldn't do this." Bryce met her eyes finally. "I know your work. That's all." The words felt like being erased. Again. By a different man, in a different way, but the end result the same. Derek watched with satisfaction barely hidden behind false sympathy. Lisa looked around the room, at the executives who'd never learned her name, at Vanessa, who'd never quite trusted her, at Bryce, who'd seen her dance and thought he could save her but couldn't even believe her. "I trusted you." Her voice was quiet, aimed at Bryce. "I told you I'd been the project before. That men like you use women like me and discard us when it's inconvenient. You promised you were different. This is business." His voice was hollow, not personal. "No, this is cowardice." She walked out, down the elevator, through the lobby, out onto the Manhattan street at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, unemployed, humiliated, and utterly destroyed. Her phone buzzed. Press notifications. Her name in articles. "Single mother's desperation leads to corporate espionage." They'd already written her ending, the cautionary tale. The woman who'd reached too far, grasped too greedily, and paid the price for daring to want something better. Lisa turned off her phone, rode the subway back to Queens, let herself into the apartment. Justin was at school, safe and oblivious. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, and finally let herself break. Not because she'd lost the job, not because Derek had won, but because for a few brief weeks she'd remembered what it felt like to be visible, to be seen, to matter, and having that taken away hurt worse than never having it at all. 3 days passed in a fog. Lisa couldn't pay rent, couldn't afford food, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything except stare at the walls and wonder how she'd explain to Justin that they might lose the apartment. The eviction notice appeared on Thursday. Bright orange paper, stark and final. Her other cleaning jobs called, "We have to let you go," company policy, legal issues. What legal issues? But she knew. The articles, her name associated with corporate theft. Nobody wanted that liability. Friday morning, she sat in a social services office, applying for emergency assistance. The caseworker was kind but overwhelmed. "You had 3 jobs. I needed 3 jobs, and you lost them all in 1 week. I was framed." The caseworker's expression said she'd heard that story 1,000 times. The process would take weeks. Meanwhile, Lisa had $4 in her wallet and a son who needed to eat. She walked home, checked on Justin, who was at a friend's house, sat in the empty apartment, staring at her phone. 47 missed calls from reporters, messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years, asking if the accusations were true. One message from Malik: "I believe you. We all do. This isn't right." But belief didn't pay rent, didn't feed her son, didn't undo the damage. Lisa pulled out her old phone, the one with the dance videos, scrolled through images from a lifetime ago, saw herself at 22, dancing with Derek, both of them young and certain the world belonged to them. She'd been wrong about the world, but she'd been right about one thing: Justin. She'd chosen Justin, and she'd choose him again, every time, without hesitation. That choice hadn't been the mistake. Trusting Bryce had been the mistake. Hoping had been the mistake. Believing she deserved to be visible had been the mistake. 7 years ago, Derek had taught her that lesson. Now Bryce had reminded her, in case she'd forgotten. Women like her didn't get second chances. They got survival, if they were lucky, invisibility, if they were smart. She'd forgotten how to be smart, had let hope make her reckless. But she was remembering now. Remembering how to be small, careful, invisible again. Except this time she was out of jobs, out of money, out of options. This time, invisibility meant homelessness, meant choosing between feeding her son and keeping their home. Lisa looked at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. 29 years old and completely defeated. 7 years of surviving. erased in 1 week. She'd thought she was stronger than this. Thought the universe rewarded people who worked hard, who chose love, who did everything right. But the universe didn't care about right or wrong. It cared about power, and she had none. Derek had won. Again. And this time, there was no coming back from it. 1 week after losing everything, Lisa stood at the kitchen sink, washing the single plate and fork they'd used for dinner. Justin had eaten the last of the peanut butter on crackers, cheerful despite their circumstances, unaware that tomorrow she had no plan for breakfast. $4.37. That's what remained in her wallet. The rent was due in 3 days. The eviction notice had been updated to bright red, final warning. Lisa dried the plate with hands that shook slightly. Exhaustion, stress. The weight of trying to hold everything together with nothing but willpower and stubbornness. "Mama," Justin's voice from the living room area. "Can you help me with my math?" "Of course, baby. Give me 1 second." She set down the dish towel, composed her face into something that resembled calm, and joined her son on the floor. His homework was spread around him, pencil marks showing where he'd erased and tried again. "What are we working on?" "Word problems." "I don't understand this one." Lisa read the problem. "Johnny has 8 apples. He gives 3 to his friend. How many does he have left?" Simple subtraction disguised as a story. She walked Justin through it patiently, watching his face light up when he understood. That expression, that moment of comprehension and pride, made everything worth it. Even this, even the crushing poverty and the humiliation and the fear. After homework, she tucked him into bed early. He protested, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. 7 years old and sensing something was wrong, even if he couldn't name it. "Love you, Mama. Love you more, baby. Sweet dreams." Alone in the apartment, Lisa paced. 300 square feet felt smaller when anxiety made the walls press inward. She'd applied for 17 jobs this week, hadn't heard back from any. The articles about her alleged corporate espionage were the first thing that appeared when anyone searched her name. She was unhireable, unfixable, erased, just like Derek had always wanted. At 11 p.m., unable to sleep, she grabbed her phone and headphones, slipped out of the apartment quietly so Justin wouldn't wake, climbed the stairs to the roof access. The building super kept it locked, but the lock had been broken for months. Nobody cared enough to fix it. Just another thing falling apart in this place, where broken things stayed broken. The roof was empty. Cold November air bit at her skin through her thin jacket. Manhattan glowed in the distance, close enough to see, but impossibly far away. All those lights, all those lives, all those people who'd never know her name or care that she existed. Lisa put in her headphones, found the old track she and Derek used to dance to. Let the music fill her ears, drown out the thoughts that had been circling for days. She stood still for a moment, just breathing, just being. Then she began to move, slowly at first, her body protesting, tired from a week of no sleep and too little food. But the muscle memory was there, patient and permanent, the foundation she'd built over thousands of hours that no amount of suffering could quite erase, the choreography Derek had assigned, the impossible brief. She executed it now, alone on a rooftop in Queens, with no audience except the indifferent city, and something shifted. The movement wasn't about proving anything anymore, wasn't about being seen or valued or recognized. It was about remembering who she was beneath all the roles she played, beneath mother, worker, survivor, beneath the crushing weight of just trying to make it through another day. She was a dancer. That truth lived in her bones, independent of whether anyone watched or cared or paid her for it. The choreography flowed from her like water, partner work she executed alone, creating the illusion of connection with negative space. Lifts and suspensions translated into leaps and controlled falls, three styles woven together, telling a story about choosing love over ambition, about sacrifice and survival, and refusing to disappear. 90 seconds of absolute truth. When she finished, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face, Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, alive, not happy, not okay, not fixed, but alive in a way that poverty and betrayal couldn't quite kill. Her phone was still in her jacket pocket. On impulse, she pulled it out, set it on the low wall that bordered the roof, angled to capture the space where she'd been dancing. One more time. For herself. For the record. For the girl she'd been at 22, who'd believed her art mattered. Lisa hit record and danced again, this time knowing she was filming. The performance changed, became more raw, more honest. Every ounce of pain and anger and grief from the past 7 years poured into movement. The abandonment, the choice, the years of invisibility, the brief, shining moment of being seen, followed by the crushing return to erasure. All of it translated into the only language that had never lied to her. When she finished, the recording ended automatically. 2 minutes and 17 seconds, her chest heaving, her cheeks wet, her body exhausted. Lisa picked up the phone, watched the playback, and for the first time in a week, she saw herself clearly. Not the failure, not the cautionary tale, not the woman who'd reached too high and fallen too far, just a dancer, telling her truth. She uploaded it to an underground dance forum she'd belonged to years ago. Anonymous account, no explanation, just the video and a caption, "This is my story, this is my truth." Then she turned off her phone, went back to the apartment, and fell into sleep too deep for dreams. When Lisa woke the next morning, her phone was buzzing, continuously, urgently. She grabbed it, expecting, what? More bad news? Reporters? The landlord demanding rent? Instead, 214 notifications. She opened the phone, confused. The dance forum where she'd posted the video had exploded. Her anonymous post had been shared to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. The views were climbing, thousands, tens of thousands. Comments filled her screen faster than she could read them. Who is this dancer? This is incredible. The emotion in this. I'm crying. This is what authentic looks like. Someone had recognized her, posted in the comments, "This is Lisa from Urban Pulse. She disappeared years ago." Another comment, "Wait, isn't this the woman who was accused of corporate espionage at Aura Creative last week?" The narrative was shifting in real time. People were investigating, finding old videos of Urban Pulse, connecting her to Derek Parker, asking questions about why she'd left dance, about what had really happened at Aura Creative. Something doesn't add up here. Derek Parker was consultant on that campaign. Convenient timing. This woman doesn't look like a thief. She looks like someone dancing to survive. Lisa sat on her mattress, watching the story unfold. The video hit 100,000 views, 200,000. 500,000. Someone started a thread titled "The Erasure of Lisa Williams," documenting Derek's pattern of removing her from Urban Pulse history, comparing videos from 2015 that featured both of them to his current website that mentioned her exactly 0 times. By noon, Dance Magazine had called, left a voicemail asking for an interview. By 2 p.m., the video had 2 million views. By evening, it was mainstream news. Viral dance video sparks. Questions about corporate espionage case. Lisa's phone kept ringing. Unknown numbers. Press. People from her past. The dance community rallying around her with a fierceness she hadn't expected, hadn't earned, didn't know how to process. Malik called. "Lisa, have you seen it? The video? Everyone at Aura knows you were framed. We're talking about walking out if Bryce doesn't fix this." A Brooklyn dance studio called, offering her teaching work. A choreographer from an off-Broadway company left a message about consulting opportunities. The world was watching, seeing, responding. Lisa had spent 7 years invisible, and in less than 24 hours, 2 million people had witnessed her truth. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt surreal, like watching someone else's life unfold on a screen she could observe but not quite touch. Justin came home from school, excited. "Mamai, Marcus's mom said she saw you on the internet. You were dancing." Lisa pulled him close. "Yes, baby, I was dancing. You looked happy, did I? Really happy, like you weren't worried about anything." "I wasn't worried about anything. For those 2 minutes, I really wasn't. Can you teach me to dance like that? Someday. When you're older. For now, you keep being exactly who you are." That night, after Justin was asleep, Lisa's phone rang one more time. A number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer. "Hello, Miss Williams. This is Rebecca Stern. I'm the artistic director for Momentum Dance Company." Lisa's breath caught. She knew that name. Momentum was one of the most respected contemporary dance companies in New York. "I saw your video." Rebecca's voice was warm, professional. "It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I'd like to commission an original piece from you. Full artistic control. Your story, your movement, your vision." Lisa couldn't speak. Rebecca continued. "We're thinking 6-month development period. Premiere next spring. We'll pay a commission fee plus a monthly stipend during creation. Does that interest you? How much?" The question came out barely above a whisper. Rebecca named a figure that would cover rent for 6 months. Food, Justin's field trip, everything. "Yes," the word came out choked. "Yes, I'll do it." "Wonderful. My assistant will send over the contract details. Welcome to Momentum, Lisa." After she hung up, Lisa sat in the darkness of her apartment, phone clutched in her hand. This morning, she'd had $4 and no future. Tonight, she had a career, a real career, built not on someone else's pity or charity or desire to fix her, but on her own talent, her own truth, her own refusal to disappear. Derek had tried to erase her. Bryce had failed to believe her. The world had written her off as a cautionary tale, but the art hadn't forgotten. The dance community had remembered, and 2 million people had watched her tell her story and said, "Yes, we see you. You matter." Lisa looked at Justin, sleeping peacefully, unaware that their lives had just changed. "I did it, baby," she whispered. "I saved us, all by myself." And for the first time in 7 years, she felt like the woman she'd been at 22. Fearless, powerful, capable of anything. Not because a man had seen her dancing, but because she'd never stopped dancing, even when no one was watching. Meanwhile, across the city, Bryce Johnson sat in his office at midnight, watching Lisa's video for the 40th time. Cameron stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You need to fix this." "I know." "Then do it, before it's too late, if it's not already too late." Bryce closed his laptop, rubbed his eyes. "I destroyed her, Cameron, publicly. Completely. How do I fix that? You start by finding the truth. You prove she was framed. You make it right." "How?" Cameron walked to the desk, pulled up files on Bryce's computer. The email that supposedly came from Lisa's account, sent at 2:17 a.m. from an IP address that wasn't in the building. "We can trace this. We can prove it wasn't her." Bryce had spent the week drowning in regret. Now, watching Cameron pull up evidence, he felt something else. Purpose. "Do it, whatever it costs. Hire whoever you need. I want proof." Cameron worked through the night. By dawn, the pattern was clear. The email had been sent via VPN from a device that had accessed Lisa's credentials multiple times over the previous weeks. Derek Parker's laptop, but more than that, Cameron dug deeper, finding archived communications. Derek had contacted the rival agency directly, had sent them Lisa's work before she'd even finalized it, then had framed her for the leak he'd orchestrated. Perfect crime. Almost. Bryce stared at the evidence, his stomach turning. He'd chosen to believe the worst about Lisa because it was easier than fighting for her. Easier than risking the company, the contract, his reputation. He'd become exactly what his father had been to his mother, valuing security over soul, taking the safe choice while someone else paid the price. Cameron, can we prosecute this? Probably. But that's not really the point, is it? The point is clearing her name. I need to call her. She won't answer. Cameron's voice was gentle but firm. Why would she? You destroyed her publicly. If you want to fix this, you do it the same way. Publicly. Bryce knew he was right, but the thought of facing Lisa again, seeing the hurt he'd caused, made him want to hide in his office forever. Instead, he picked up the phone, called his PR team, set up a press conference. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Boss, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The press conference was packed. Industry journalists, mainstream news, dance reporters who'd been following Lisa's viral video, cameras everywhere, microphones clustered at the podium. Bryce stood at the front, Cameron and Vanessa flanking him. Behind them, projected on the screen, was evidence, emails, IP addresses, timelines, the complete record of Derek Parker's sabotage. Thank you all for coming. Bryce's voice was steady, though his hands shook slightly. I have a statement regarding the Velocity campaign and the suspension of Lisa Williams. The room went silent. 2 weeks ago, we suspended Miss Williams on suspicion of corporate espionage. That was wrong, completely wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Our investigation has revealed that Miss Williams was framed. The leak came from within our organization, from our consultant, Derek Parker. He showed the evidence, explained the pattern, detailed how Derek had systematically stolen Lisa's work, leaked it to competitors, then framed her for his crimes. But I'm not here only to expose Derek Parker. I'm here to admit my own failure. Bryce paused, letting the words settle. I didn't believe Lisa when she told me she was innocent. I chose to protect this company instead of fighting for the truth. I failed her. I failed our creative team, who knew she was being framed and tried to tell me. I failed everyone who trusted Aura Creative to be different. His voice cracked slightly. The vulnerability was genuine, painful to expose. Lisa Williams is an extraordinary artist. She created brilliant work under impossible conditions. When Derek Parker tried to destroy her, I helped him by choosing to believe the convenient lie over the difficult truth. That failure is entirely mine. Questions erupted from reporters. Bryce held up his hand, effective immediately. Derek Parker is terminated from all Aura Creative projects. We're filing civil action against him for fraud. We'll support any legal action his other victims wish to pursue. And we're issuing a public apology to Lisa Williams, with financial compensation for the harm we caused. A reporter called out, "What about the Velocity campaign? Velocity has ended their relationship with us. We lost the contract. $8 million. Another reporter, "You're sacrificing $8 million for one employee? I'm sacrificing $8 million for integrity. Because living with that loss is easier than living with having destroyed an innocent woman's career to protect my own." The room exploded with questions, but Bryce found himself focusing on one face in the crowd, Keisha, from Dance Magazine, who'd been following Lisa's story. "Have you spoken to Lisa Williams?" "Yes, and she told me something important. She said to do this because it's right, not because of her. So I want to be absolutely clear. This isn't about saving Lisa. She saved herself. You all saw that video. She didn't need me to prove her worth." He took a breath. "This is about Aura Creative choosing to be the kind of company that tells the truth, even when it costs us, even when it's too late to undo the harm, even when doing the right thing means admitting we did the wrong thing first." The press conference continued for 30 minutes. Questions about Derek, about the investigation, about the future of Aura Creative. But Bryce kept thinking about Lisa, hoping she was watching, hoping this was enough, knowing it probably wasn't. When he returned to his office, Cameron was waiting. Derek Parker's publicist called. He's preparing a response. Let him. The evidence speaks for itself. His clients are dropping him. Good. Bryce sat at his desk, opened his laptop, found Lisa's viral video, watched it again, seeing not the woman he'd failed, but the woman who'd risen despite that failure, who'd taken her pain and transformed it into art that 2 million people had witnessed. She hadn't needed him to save her, she'd saved herself, and somehow, impossibly, that made him love her more. 3 days after the press conference, Lisa sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, being interviewed by Keisha from Dance magazine. Your video has sparked a movement, Keisha said gently. People are calling it the truth dance. What do you want people to know? Lisa considered the question carefully. I didn't make that video to start a movement. I made it because I needed to remember who I was. But if it helps other people remember who they are beneath what the world demands they be, then I'm grateful. Derek Parker, can you talk about him? Lisa had practiced this answer. We were partners once. That was a long time ago. He made choices that hurt me. I made choices that saved me. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in creating. Keisha leaned forward. Do you think Bryce Johnson did the right thing, exposing Derek? I think he did what he needed to do, for himself, for his company. I appreciate that he told the truth, but I didn't wait for him to save me. I couldn't afford to. What's next for you? Lisa smiled. Momentum Dance Company has commissioned an original piece. I'm creating something about motherhood, about choice, about the art that saves us when everything else fails. It's called Choosing Justin. Tell me about Justin. Lisa's expression softened. He's my son. He's 7. He's the reason I stopped dancing professionally, and he's the reason I never stopped dancing at all. This piece is for him, to show him that choosing love is never the wrong choice. When Keisha left, Lisa sat alone in the coffee shop, drinking expensive coffee she could finally afford. Her phone buzzed. Malik, sending her a link. She opened it. Derek Parker's career was imploding in real time. Clients cancelling, projects withdrawn, other choreographers coming forward with similar stories of theft and manipulation, justice served without her having to lift a finger. Lisa closed the link. She didn't need to watch Derek fall, didn't need that particular satisfaction. She had work to do, a piece to create, a son to raise, a life to build from the ashes of everything that had tried to destroy her. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 6 months passed. Winter became spring. Lisa's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined during those dark November days when $4 was all she had. The Momentum Commission paid enough for a better apartment in Brooklyn. 2 bedrooms, so Justin finally had his own space, windows that actually opened, a kitchen with a full-size refrigerator. Small luxuries that felt impossibly grand after years of surviving in 400 square feet. She taught classes at 3 dance studios now, not because she needed the money desperately, but because she loved sharing the art that had saved her. Students came specifically to work with her, drawn by the viral video, by the story of resilience, by the quality of her teaching. Justin thrived. Happier, healthier, drawing constantly and talking about becoming an artist when he grew up. Sometimes he asked about the changes in their lives, why they'd moved, why Mama seemed lighter. Things got better, she'd tell him simply. Sometimes things just get better. Derek Parker had disappeared from the industry. Not dramatically, just faded. His name no longer appeared in credits. His social media went silent. The dance community moved on, finding new stars to celebrate. Lisa rarely thought about him anymore. He'd become what he'd always tried to make her, irrelevant. And Bryce. She hadn't spoken to him since the press conference, had watched it, of course, had felt something complicated and unnamed as he admitted his failures publicly. But she'd kept her distance. Built her new life, independent of his guilt, his need for redemption, his desire to make things right. She didn't need him to make things right. She'd already done that herself. Now it was opening night for Choosing Justin. The Intimate Theater in Brooklyn was sold out. 200 seats filled with dance community members, press, people who'd followed her story from viral video to this moment. Lisa stood backstage, wearing simple black, her heart racing with nervous excitement. She'd choreographed every moment of this piece, told her story her way, the pregnancy, the choice, the years of invisible survival, the midnight dances, the betrayal, the resurrection, all of it transformed into movement that was honest, raw, and ultimately hopeful. Rebecca, Momentum's artistic director, squeezed her shoulder. The house is full. Ready, ready. Justin was in the front row with Mrs. Chen, who'd become more than a babysitter over the years, a friend, a grandmother figure, someone who'd watched them struggle and celebrated them rising. Lisa peeked through the curtain, spotted her son. He waved excitedly. She blew him a kiss. Then she noticed someone else. Back row, trying to be unobtrusive. Bryce. Her breath caught. He'd come. Of course he had. But he'd stayed in the back, respected her space, not trying to center himself in her triumph. The lights dimmed, the audience quieted, the music began, and Lisa stepped onto the stage, dancing the story she'd lived, the story no one could erase, the story that had saved her precisely because she'd refused to let anyone else write it. The performance was transcendent. Lisa embodied every moment, every emotion, every truth she'd lived. The audience was silent throughout, mesmerized. When the final image faded, when the lights went down on Lisa and the young dancer representing Justin reaching toward light together, the silence held for a heartbeat. Then, standing ovation, thunderous, immediate, universal. Lisa took her bow, tears streaming down her face, found Justin in the audience, standing on his seat, cheering louder than anyone. Found Mrs. Chen beside him, dabbing at her eyes. Found the dance community that had reclaimed her, celebrating her truth. Found Bryce in the back row, also standing, also crying, witnessing her triumph from exactly where he belonged, in the audience, not on stage, not trying to be part of her story except as someone who'd learned, finally, what it meant to truly see someone. Backstage, the reception was joyful chaos. Press interviews, congratulations from fellow artists, Rebecca beaming with pride. Lisa answered questions, accepted praise, felt the weight of 6 years of invisibility lifting entirely. Then, through the crowd, she saw him. Bryce, standing at the periphery, uncertain whether to approach. Their eyes met. Time seemed to slow. Lisa excused herself. Walked over. You came. Her voice was quiet, neutral. I hope that's okay. I didn't want to intrude, but I couldn't. I had to see it. What did you think? Bryce's eyes were red-rimmed. Lisa, that was the most honest, beautiful expression of the human spirit I've ever witnessed. The way you told your story. Not as tragedy, but as triumph, as love, as choice. I don't have adequate words. Thank you. They stood together. The noise of the reception fading around them. I heard about the changes at Aura, Lisa said. Cameron keeps me updated. Bryce smiled slightly. Cameron talks too much. He cares about you. So do I. The admission hung between them. I'm proud of you, Lisa continued, for what you did. The press conference, exposing Derek, choosing integrity over money. That took real courage. I should have done it sooner, should have believed you from the start. Yes, but you did it eventually. That counts for something. Does it count enough? Lisa understood what he was really asking. Enough for what? For forgiveness? I forgave you months ago, Bryce. I had to, for my own peace. But forgiving you doesn't mean I need you in my life. I built this without you. I'm happy without you, I know. And that's as it should be. He took a breath. But I want you to know something. These 6 months, I've been working on myself. Therapy. Changing how I run the company. Facing why I made the choices I made. I'm trying to become someone worthy of knowing you. Not as someone I fix or save, but as equals. Lisa studied his face, saw the changes, the humility, the genuine transformation. Why? Because you showed me what it looks like to be truly alive, to choose yourself, to refuse to disappear. And I want to learn that. I want to be that kind of person. Before she could respond, Justin appeared, pulling on her hand. "Mama, can we get ice cream? Mrs. Chen said we could if you said yes." Lisa laughed. "Yes, baby, we can get ice cream." She looked at Bryce. "I should go." "Wait." He hesitated. "I'm building something. A non-profit supporting working artists, providing resources, legal support, advocacy. I could use someone who understands what those artists need, someone with integrity and vision and the courage to tell uncomfortable truths. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering partnership, true partnership, equals. You handle the artistic vision, I handle the business infrastructure. We build something that actually helps people like you, like my mother, like everyone who's been told their art doesn't matter." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "That's ambitious. So were you when you posted that video?" "Fair point." She smiled. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. No pressure. But Lisa, I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait as long as you need." After he left, Lisa stood holding Justin's hand, watching Bryce disappear into the Brooklyn night. Mrs. Chen approached. "That was the boss man who got you in trouble. That was him. Looks different, humbled. He is different. So am I. You going to give him another chance?" Lisa looked down at Justin, who was pulling her toward the exit, chattering about ice cream flavors. "Maybe someday, when I'm ready." "You sure you want to wait? I've waited 7 years to get my life back, Mrs. Chen. I can wait a little longer to figure out if I want to share it." They walked out into the spring evening, Lisa's heart full of possibility, not certainty, not guarantees, just the beautiful, terrifying openness of a future she'd earned entirely on her own terms. And that, more than any love story, more than any rescue, more than any fairy tale ending, was the kind of triumph that changed everything. 2 weeks later, Lisa stood in a small dance studio in Brooklyn, teaching a class of teenagers, showing them combinations, correcting form, sharing the language that had saved her life. Someone appeared in the doorway. Bryce, holding 2 coffee cups. She saw him, smiled, held up one finger. 1 minute. The class ended, students filed out, chattering happily. Lisa approached him, accepting the offered coffee. "You came. You said coffee. I brought coffee." He was nervous. She could see it. Endearing, really. "About your offer," she said. "The non-profit partnership." "Yes, I've been thinking about it." Lisa sipped her coffee. "It's a good idea. Important work. I want to be part of it." Bryce's face lit up. "Really, really, but I need to be clear about something. Anything. I don't just want to be your business partner." Lisa met his eyes steadily. "I want to know you, the real you, not the CEO, not the man trying to redeem himself, just Bryce, the person beneath all the roles. And if we try that and it gets complicated, then we're honest about it. We talk like adults. We respect each other enough to be truthful. No power games. Never again. I won't accept less. No savior complex. I'm in therapy for that." He smiled. "Actually in therapy. Every week." Lisa laughed. "Me too. So we're both works in progress, apparently. Want to work on ourselves together?" Slowly, carefully, Lisa extended her hand. "Partners." Bryce took it. partners. They stood there, hands clasped, both smiling at the formality. "You know what partners in dance companies do?" Lisa asked playfully. "Build businesses. They also dance together. Want to learn? I'll be terrible. That's okay. I'm an excellent teacher and patient." She led him into the center of the studio, turned on music, soft, hopeful melody, began teaching him basic steps. He was awkward, self-conscious, stepping on his own feet. "Relax," she corrected his posture gently. "Stop thinking so much. Just feel the rhythm. I don't have rhythm. Everyone has rhythm. You just have to find it. Try again." He did, still clumsy, but improving. And they were laughing, both of them, at his mistakes and his earnest attempts, and the absurdity of teaching a CEO to dance in an empty studio on a Tuesday afternoon. But beneath the laughter, something else. Connection, real connection. The kind built not on need or rescue or debt, but on mutual respect, honest vulnerability, and the willingness to look foolish in front of someone you trust. Through the studio window, afternoon light slanted golden. Outside, Brooklyn moved at its usual pace, oblivious to the small miracle happening inside. Two people who'd walked through fire, who'd made terrible mistakes and learned hard lessons, who'd fallen and risen and learned what it meant to be whole. Dancing together, not perfectly, not even gracefully, but together, as equals, as partners. As two human beings choosing each other not from desperation or loneliness or the need to be saved, but from the simple, revolutionary recognition that sometimes broken things become most beautiful when they're healed side by side. And that was how their story ended, or perhaps, more accurately, how it began, not with rescue, not with fairy tale magic, but with two people learning new steps together, building something honest from the ashes of everything that had tried to break them. One careful, imperfect, hopeful step at a time. 6 years later, on an ordinary Tuesday evening, you could find them in that same small studio, Lisa and Bryce, directors of the Williams Johnson Dance Collective, a haven for street dance artists who'd been overlooked, erased, told their art didn't matter. The collective had become known throughout New York for giving voices back to the voiceless, for creating opportunities where none existed, for proving that talent wasn't about connections or luck, but about the courage to keep moving even when the world couldn't see you. Derek Parker's name had faded entirely, not because anyone campaigned against him, but because authentic art had a way of eclipsing stolen glory. The dance community had moved on, finding new stars to celebrate, new stories to tell. Lisa choreographed 3 more original pieces over those 6 years, each one more deeply personal than the last, teaching thousands of students that perfection mattered less than truth, that the most powerful art came from the most honest places. She raised Justin, who grew into a thoughtful teenager with his mother's eyes and his own artistic vision, who understood that real strength wasn't measured by never falling, but by rising with grace, by choosing love, by staying true to yourself even when the world demanded you change. And Bryce, he'd learned to dance, never gracefully. His body would always move with the careful deliberation of someone discovering rhythm late in life. But he danced with joy, with presence, with the knowledge that being fully seen required being fully vulnerable. Together, they'd built a life founded not on rescue or debt, but on genuine partnership, equal steps, mutual respect, the daily choice to show up honestly for each other, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. On this particular Tuesday, after the day's classes ended, Lisa pulled Bryce up from the desk where he was reviewing grant applications. "Come on, dance with me. I'm terrible at this. You know I'm terrible at this. You're better than you think." Lisa queued up a song, the same song from that first afternoon 6 years ago, and you're getting better every time. That's just pity talking. That's love talking. The word hung between them, familiar and forever new. Bryce let her lead him into a simple combination, stumbled, caught himself, tried again, and all the while, Lisa was patient, encouraging, seeing not his clumsiness, but his willingness to keep trying. Through the studio window, evening light painted them gold, two figures moving together, imperfect and real and trying. And if you looked closely, watching them dance in that warm light, you might remember something important, something the world tries hard to make us forget, that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding someone to complete you. They're about finding someone who sees you completely, all your scars and strength and sacred truths, and chooses to walk beside you, equal step by equal step, into whatever comes next. That transformation is possible at any age, that broken things can heal, that second chances are real if we're brave enough to believe we deserve them. That's not a fairy tale. That's not fantasy. That's the much harder, much more beautiful truth about what it means to be human, to fall, to rise, to choose love over fear, hope over resignation, connection over the safety of staying small. And that truth, that simple, revolutionary, heartbreakingly beautiful truth, is the kind that restores faith in happy endings built not on magic, but on the patient, persistent work of two imperfect people choosing each other day after ordinary day and calling that choice love. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.